Hey everyone, welcome back to Upside Down Data. So, the market has been pumping over the last number of days. Bitcoin today reached 20% on the move that it's put in over the last 5 or so days. It's now sitting at about 14% after pulling back a little bit. And there are other encouraging signs across the market, other signs of bullishness. For example, we can see that USDT dominance has been dropping pretty substantially over the same period of time, indicating that people have been spending their stablecoins to get some more exposure to the crypto market. Over in traditional markets, also, we can see that the DXY has shown signs of topping. It put in this kind of reversal pattern up there at the top and has now put in two very red days. And of course, that's also a signal that people are taking on a little bit more risk. So, for the first time in what feels like a long time, sentiment has been responding a little bit to this, and there's some bullishness re entering the market. So we're going to talk about this move and what it means and what we can expect going forward. So if you guys like the content, subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and follow us on Twitter. We put out regular updates there about our risk indicators, our momentum indicators, and more. So I think that the most important fact to keep in mind here that puts everything else in context is that from a macro perspective, we're in a very attractive accumulation zone. So, for example, I'm pulling up here the MVRV Z score, the market value to realized value Z score. This is essentially an indicator of how oversold versus overbought Bitcoin is at any given period of time, relative to macro moves in the past. And clearly, we're in an oversold region here. This green box down there at the bottom, which has only been visited, 4 times in Bitcoin's previous history, is now where the price has been consolidating. And historically, buying in this zone has returned very impressive gains over time. And I think that there's a high likelihood that that will repeat itself. So, from a macro perspective, this seems clearly like an accumulation zone. At the same time, there are some things about this move that are giving people pause and that are causing people to criticize it. And, some people are still calling for a reversal soon. Um, I want to take a look at that argument. I think that argument really revolves around Bitcoin dominance. Here is the Bitcoin dominance chart here. This is just the percentage of the total market cap that is comprised of the market cap of Bitcoin. And we can see this is the daily chart that Bitcoin dominance has been pulling back over the course of this move. That indicates, obviously, that the altcoin market has been leading the way. It's been outperforming Bitcoin over this period of time. The reason that that's notable is that typically when we see full-fledged bear markets begin, so when we see a macro scale momentum shift in the market, typically that's led by Bitcoin. We could go back in historical time quite a ways to see examples of this, but let me just pull up the most recent example of this. We'll pull up the weekly chart so that this is so that we have a little bit higher resolution here. Back in the fall of 2020, when this last market cycle bull run began, we saw the Bitcoin dominance actually pumped quite substantially before it turned over. It put in about a 27.5% move to the upside before alt season began, and the bottom fell out of Bitcoin dominance. And we saw that drop in the spring of 2021. That's typically the progression of things, that when we're going to see a believable, a sustained bull market, it typically begins with Bitcoin, and then the money flows from those Bitcoin profits as people start to sell their stack into altcoins. And so you'll see alt season oftentimes at the end of the Bitcoin bull run. Obviously, we have not had a recent Bitcoin bull run. The whole market has been pulling back very, very intensely. And yet we've seen that altcoins have been leading the way here on this most recent move. Ethereum has been performing extremely well, actually one of the best performers in the top 50. And if we look at the Ethereum ratio relative to Bitcoin, well, we can see that it's pumping even harder. And this obviously, again, indicates that Bitcoin has not been the star of this show. So, even over just the last 2 days, we can see that Ethereum has put in a 28% move above and beyond what Bitcoin has been able to do, which has also been, in the green. So this has been an altcoin-led move. and that's worth keeping in mind. I think that that focuses us on one thing that we need to watch over the next few weeks, which is Bitcoin going to start to pick up momentum? If we're going to believe that this move represents the beginning of a macro trend reversal, and that this could potentially be the start of revving up the engines again for a move to the upside, even if that takes months and months to happen. But if we're going to believe that this is the start of that process, then I think that we'd want to see Bitcoin pick up momentum and take the reins, draw the attention, and keep the spotlight for a little bit at some point. I don't think that it's necessarily a major concern that that's not happening right away, but I do think that that's something that we would want to see emerge in order to start, considering this move to have kind of lasting significance. So that's how I think about this criticism of this move. The criticism being that the altcoins are leading the market right now, whereas we would like to see Bitcoin lead the market at some point. At the same time, we've been in an extended downtrend here. And as we've pushed lower and lower, particularly after the two capitulation events that happened in May and June, the risk to reward proposition on accumulating crypto has become, really, really attractive. Uh, After a drawdown like this, it's the time to be getting more and more interested. So, to some degree, the question of whether this is the beginning of a new macro trend and the start of an extended bull market is beside the point, because even if we need plenty more time to get there, there's almost no question in my mind. And this is not financial advice. It's just supported by a lot of data, including the MVRV score that we've looked at, historical drawdowns, time frames and patterns across market cycles in Bitcoin's history, and lots else. This is a time to accumulate. This is a clear accumulation zone. So um, I think it's worth just keeping things simple rather than trying to call the bottom exactly, or rather than getting too stressed out if we do see the market, top out on a temporary basis and range a bit, or even return, to the downside, maybe even test slightly lower levels here. I don't think that that would be a cause of much concern. So I think that that's really the right perspective in this type of situations. Keep things simple, keep the macro perspective in mind. Remember that we are extremely oversold by a number of indicators, and that in hindsight, buying in the green zone here has always looked really good. And keeping it simple means assuming that that's likely to happen again. Another thing that you can be doing in this situation is keeping an eye on altcoins that have been performing particularly well. So, given that the market has kind of unleashed these oversold cryptos to start recovering some of their losses over the past few months, it's informative to see which ones have been pumping the hardest. One that's caught my attention is Quant. Even on the weekly chart, we can see that this bullish move started a few weeks ago. But if we zoom in a little bit on the daily chart here, we can see that this has been pretty much up only for Quant over the last couple of weeks. And this has been supported by substantial volume too. So one of the earliest reversals here that's being supported with volume and is really showing a lot of momentum in the early going is Quant. Another one that it has been drawing a lot of attention, has been even more impressive over the last few days, is Matic. I wouldn't jump into either of these here, particularly Matic, after a move like this. I mean, from the bottom here, Matic has already put in almost a 3x, and actually fully a 3x if we take it to the top of the wick here today. But in the more recent past, just over the last week or so, Matic has pumped another 70 to 85%, depending on whether we include that wick. So these are signals that there's money flowing back into the market, at least for select assets. And we're still, from a macro standpoint, quite oversold on many of these assets. So put together your strategy, is what I think this time is for. Is to keep things simple, to identify the high performers, and be patient. This is what I'm trying to do in any case. So even if this move turns out to not be the first leg of a macro bull market, maybe this does turn out to be a bear market rally when all is said and done. Even so, keeping things simple means recognizing the accumulation zone while we're in it and, taking what the market gives you for as long as we're in that accumulation zone. Hope you guys found this useful. Thanks for watching.